Hello.
My name is Zalia. Most people just know me as Ted's mother. That's who I've been for 22 years. Not a woman, not a person with her own needs and dreams, just a mother. And I don't resent it. How could I? Ted is my everything. He was born on a quiet autumn morning, when the leaves had just begun to fall and the world felt like it was exhaling summer's final breath. I remember his tiny fists curled beside his cheeks, the softness of his cry. From the moment I held him, I knew I was never going to let him go. Never. His father left when Ted was only 6 months old. He wasn't cruel, just absent. One day he said he needed time to think, and he never came back. I used to feel bitter about that. Now, I see it differently. Maybe it was a blessing. It meant Ted was all mine. I raised him alone, built our little world brick by brick, school lunches, scraped knees, science fair volcanoes. I didn't just want to be a good mother. I wanted to be everything for him. His protector. His best friend. His anchor. And now, he's 22. He towers over me, lean and strong, with messy dark hair and eyes like mine, deep, watchful, full of emotion he doesn't always speak. He still calls me Mom, with that boyish lilt, but there's a distance now, an invisible thread stretched too tight between us. I can feel it fraying. I know he should be moving on. I know that. Most boys his age are living their own lives, falling in and out of love, learning heartbreak the way I once did. But I can't help it, every time he talks about another girl, my stomach knots. I imagine someone hurting him, using him, leaving him. And I can't bear it. He's never questioned my warnings before. Not really. But last week, he met her. Vorna. Just saying her name makes something icy bloom in my chest. She's different, he told me, a spark in his eyes. You'll like her. But I didn't. I couldn't. She was all angles and cold smiles, with a voice like silk hiding sharpness beneath. I saw through her in an instant. Ted didn't see it. He never does. I don't want you seeing her, I said. The words slipped out before I could temper them, before I could soften the blow. His mouth curled into something unrecognizable. You don't want. Since when do you get to decide who I love, Mom? It hit me like a slap. He had never spoken to me like that before. We argued, more than we ever had. I told him she wasn't right. I told him I knew girls like that. I told him she'd leave him shattered. Maybe I need to figure that out myself, he said. And then, he left. He didn't come home for days. Weeks, actually. No texts. No calls. Just silence. I told myself he was fine. That he needed space. That this was part of letting go. But each night I sat by the window, watching the porch light glow against the dark, hoping to see his shadow on the steps. When he finally came back, it wasn't like I'd imagined. He didn't run into my arms. He didn't smile. He was pale, hollow-eyed, with fury clinging to every movement. He didn't speak to me for 3 days. On the 4th night, I made his favorite, chicken stew, the kind with extra garlic and rosemary, the way he likes it. I didn't say a word. I just left it on the table and sat across from him. He ate slowly, without looking at me. She left me, he said finally, his voice flat. My heart twisted, but I didn't reach for him. I couldn't. He wouldn't let me. She said she wasn't the type for commitment, he added. She just left. I wanted to say I told you so. I wanted to shout that I had been right. But I didn't. Instead, I laughed. Softly. Not because I found it funny. Because if I didn't laugh, I'd cry. That night, I waited until he fell asleep on the couch, and then I covered him with a blanket. I brushed his hair back from his forehead and whispered, "You're better off without her." He didn't stir. But the next morning, he let me make him coffee. And the next evening, he sat beside me while I read, his arm brushing mine. Something had changed. Something subtle. He no longer spoke of girls. He no longer left the house much. He looked at me differently. Like I was the only one left who hadn't let him down. And I, God forgive me, I liked it. Ted didn't bring up Vorna again. After she left him, a silence grew in him, one that was different from the silence of our argument weeks before. That had been the silence of rebellion, of pulling away. But now it was quieter. Sadder. A surrender, almost. I never asked for details. I knew enough. I saw it in his eyes, in the way he stared too long at nothing, the way he stopped playing music in the house. There had always been guitar riffs and soft humming, but that disappeared. I filled the space with my own rituals, his favorite meals, warm blankets, small notes left on his desk. I became the anchor again, and he let me. And slowly, he started returning, not just to the house, but to me. One night, he sat with me on the porch. The sun had already dipped low behind the trees, casting long orange streaks across the yard. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, he said, "You were right." I didn't ask what he meant. I just reached out and placed my hand over his. He didn't pull away. We stayed like that until the stars came out. That week, he followed me around more than usual. Helped with groceries, fixed the broken cabinet hinge in the kitchen, even sat beside me while I mended a tear in the old armchair. He didn't talk much, but he stayed close. I could feel him watching me sometimes, not with childlike need or teenage irritation, but something more searching. Like he was seeing me for the first time. And I was looking too. I began noticing things I shouldn't. The strength in his hands. The way his voice had deepened over the years. The shadows beneath his eyes that made him look more like a man than a boy. One evening, he fell asleep on the couch, his head resting on the pillow I had embroidered for him when he was little. I watched him, heart aching with something that had no name. I brushed a lock of hair from his forehead, and for a moment, I let my fingers linger. I told myself it was just comfort. Just habit. But something inside me stirred. The next morning, he woke up early. I found him sitting at the kitchen table, coffee already made. "Morning," I said. He didn't look up. "Do you think some people just aren't meant to find love?" The question hung in the air between us. Heavy. Delicate. I sat across from him. "I think some people are meant to love differently." His eyes lifted to mine then. And there was something there, uncertainty, vulnerability. But also trust. That afternoon, we went for a walk. The path behind our house wound through a stretch of woods we used to explore when he was younger. It felt familiar and strange, like everything else between us. He told me about Vorna. Her coldness. The way she made him feel small. I listened, but part of me felt fury. How could anyone hurt him like that? "I didn't even know who I was with her," he said. "But with you, I feel like I can just be me." I didn't answer. I couldn't. That night, the power went out. A summer storm. Thunder rolled across the sky, and the house was cloaked in shadows. We lit candles and played cards like we used to. Laughing, just a little too loud, like the darkness made us brave. He reached across the table and touched my hand to stop me from cheating a card. Our eyes met. The laughter faded. The air shifted. Neither of us moved. I stood first, pretending to tidy the room. He watched me. And when I turned off the last candle, I felt his presence behind me, close, quiet. I turned, and he was there. Inches away. The storm outside was nothing compared to what thundered in my chest. He didn't speak. And then, he kissed me. Soft. Questioning. Like he was asking for permission with every breath. I froze, only for a second. But in that second, everything inside me shattered and reformed into something I couldn't recognize. When we pulled apart, I stared at him. He looked afraid. Vulnerable. And so real. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I shook my head slowly. "Don't be." And I meant it. After that night, after the kiss, we didn't talk about it. Not directly. We pretended, or at least tried to. The next morning, I found him sitting at the kitchen table like nothing had changed, eating cereal, flipping through his phone. He glanced at me when I walked in. That look, hesitant, searching, made my heart flutter and ache all at once. "Morning," he said, softly. "Morning," I replied. I poured coffee with a steady hand, but my insides were trembling. I could feel the echo of that kiss like it had been etched into my skin. The air between us had changed. It wasn't just about proximity anymore. It was about gravity. He hovered more. Sat closer. Spoke in quieter tones. It wasn't just about being near me, it was the way he watched me, the way his eyes lingered on my mouth when I spoke, the way his fingertips brushed mine like he was memorizing the texture of my touch. And I didn't stop him. I should have. I knew what I was supposed to feel: guilt, confusion, shame. But those feelings never came. What came instead was a sense of rightness that terrified me. It wasn't physical. Not really. It was deeper. Like our souls had turned sideways and suddenly aligned. One evening, he came home late. His eyes were red, face pale. "Were you drinking?" I asked quietly. He nodded, slumped into the armchair. I knelt in front of him, took his hand. "Why?" He shrugged. "I just felt like I had to get out." "Think." "Think about what?" He looked at me then, and I could see it, he was terrified of what he felt. Just as I was. "About us," he said. The words hung in the room like smoke. I sat back, breath caught in my throat. "I know it's not normal," he said quickly. "I know we're supposed to keep our distance. You're my mother, and I'm supposed to move on, find someone, build something of my own." His voice cracked. But when I tried, with Vorna, I felt like a stranger in my own body. And when I'm with you, I don't feel broken. I feel seen. I should have told him to stop. I should have told him this was just confusion, a temporary collapse. But I didn't. Instead, I reached out, brushing a tear from his cheek. "I never meant to keep you," I whispered. "But I didn't know how to let you go." His arms were around me before I could finish the thought. Not tight, gentle. Like he was afraid I'd disappear. I held him too long. That night, we didn't sleep in separate rooms. We didn't talk much, either. He lay beside me, fully dressed, and I could feel the tension in every breath he took. I watched the shadows dance on the ceiling and felt a kind of fear I'd never known, a fear not of what might happen, but of what already had. His hand found mine in the dark. Interlaced fingers. Familiar. Intimate. "You're still my mom," he whispered. "I know," I said. "And you're still my son. But something's happening." "Yes. Do you want it to stop?" I turned to him, and for the first time, I told the truth: I don't know. He turned toward me too, eyes searching mine. "We're not hurting anyone," he said. But that wasn't the point. The point was that this feeling, this powerful, twisting thing blooming between us, was not meant to exist. And yet, there it was. Like a vine winding around our hearts, impossible to prune. The next day, he didn't go out. He stayed home, cooked breakfast, helped clean the yard. We laughed over old photos and stories, and for a few hours, we could almost pretend nothing was different. But every brush of our shoulders, every quiet glance, every silence, told a different story. One that hadn't ended with that kiss. One that had only begun. The days after that felt like walking a line drawn in water, real and impossible all at once. Ted stopped talking about leaving. He didn't mention job prospects in other cities, or his plans to move out. Instead, he began restoring the old deck, helping repaint the trim of the house, little things he'd always promised to do, someday. Every action felt like a promise, unspoken, tentative, but there. One afternoon, I watched him from the kitchen window. He had his sleeves rolled up, hair damp with sweat, paint on his forearm. He looked so much like the man he'd grown into, so different from the boy I'd raised, and yet, still him. My Ted. I dried my hands, heart thudding, and stepped outside. You missed a spot, I said, pointing with a half-smile. He turned, eyes lighting up when they found mine. I was hoping you'd come out. We stood there, the summer air warm around us. It felt like everything had slowed. The whole world narrowing to that soft, steady beat between us. I've been thinking, he said, quietly. About everything. I nodded. Me too. His hand brushed mine again, and neither of us pulled away. I don't want to ruin your life, he said. But I don't want to lose you either. Not like before. You didn't lose me, I said. You just grew. I didn't know how to let you. We sat on the porch steps like we used to, knees touching, sharing the same blanket of silence. Only now, the silence hummed. It held things. Feelings. Memory. Desire. I think I always knew, he said softly. That we were closer than we were supposed to be. But I didn't know what to call it. Neither did I admitted. And maybe that was the only truth we had. We couldn't name it. We couldn't explain it. But we could feel it. That evening, as dusk spread across the yard, he came to me without words. He sat beside me on the couch, leaned into my side, rested his head on my shoulder like he used to when he was small. I curled my fingers into his hair. He sighed, content, and whispered, I don't want to look anywhere else. Not anymore. My heart ached, but not with guilt, only tenderness. I kissed the crown of his head, let my lips linger. When he looked up at me, his eyes held 1,000 questions. So I answered the only way I could, with another kiss. This one wasn't soft and tentative. It was quiet, yes, but full of the truth we had both been running from. The truth that no one would understand. The truth that didn't belong to the world, only to us. From that moment on, something opened between us. Not just affection. Not just desire. Trust. Acceptance. A bond that had always existed, but now took on a new form. We didn't speak of love. It was too dangerous a word, too bright. But it lived in every shared glance, every meal cooked together, every evening spent wrapped in each other's quiet company. It wasn't what I'd imagined for him. It wasn't what I'd imagined for myself. But it was real. And it was ours. In the stillness of our home, under the roof where he took his first steps, spoke his first words, cried through sleepless nights, I now found something unexpected. Not just the son I had raised. But the man I loved. And he loved me too. Not in spite of the world's rules. But in defiance of them. In our world, he was not broken. And I was not alone. We were simply, finally, together.
Bye.